GDPR or a $23 million fine. Now, I know a lot of you think, oh, that never happened to me. They just go after the bigger players. Well, I assure you, this year in 2018, it has already happened and someone has been fined. Now, there are 5 simple steps that you can take to avoid any GDPR compliance issues, and I'm going to get you there. Now, before we do, I want you to download my ebook on my 7-step framework on how to launch knockout products on Amazon as instant access, and just download using the link below in the description. Now, before we hit my intro, go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel to be notified of future e-commerce updates. So the GDPR is the European Union's General Protection Data Regulation, and it really is a regional law with global implications. It is the most wide-reaching, comprehensive data protection regulation in history. This law not only applies to companies that reside in the EU, but all companies that do business with any citizen that lives within the EU. What this means for you and your e-commerce business is that if you do any business with citizens in the EU and collect information on them, you're subject to the GDPR. Now, the GDPR went into effect this year, May 2018, and it really resides around the information that you collect on people and how you use it. Data Frontier states that over half of all websites are not compliant with GDPR regulations still here at the end of the year of 2018. Now, I know most people scoff at these sorts of things because they either don't know what they mean or they don't think that they'll ever get caught. But the Australian Data Protection Regulator has already fined one company for its violations, and the amount was somewhere around $5,500 US. And while I know you say, oh, that's not a whole lot of money, I bet if you're a small e-commerce startup, you don't want to get hit with a $5,500 fine. And that's just for starts. This fine could go to upwards of $23 million or 4% of a company's annual revenue, whichever one is higher. And either way, that can sting. So I'm going to break down this regulation in 5 sections to make things simple. And like I said earlier, I'll list some policy generators to make your life easier. Also, I will list a couple of apps for either Shopify or Wordpress that you can plug in to make this job even easier. Now, the first of the 5 things your website's going to need is a clear and understandable privacy policy. And this is really going to surround 6 main subjects. The first one being identification. The second is data collection and data usage, followed by data storage, data sharing, and data control. Now, all of these concepts and categories can be intimidating, but ultimately you have 3 main options for getting this privacy policy taken care of. And the first really is hiring an attorney to go through the GDPR per your website, your business, and writing up a sound privacy policy. The second way you could go about it really is by copying or mimicking a company's GDPR or privacy policy and trust that what they did was correct. Or lastly, and the way I would suggest, is by using a privacy policy generator, again, which I will mention at the end of the video. If you like this video and find it useful, let me know by giving me a thumbs up and liking this video. Second thing that you really need to have is consent on forms. Now, in the GDPR regulations, consent is an individual's genuine right to control his or her own data. And your company is going to need to ask for this consent anytime you have cookies on your website or a form that wants to be filled out, a user account on your website, contests, etc. The third thing is consent at checkout on your e-commerce store. Now, People understand that when they make a purchase online on your website, that they're going to need to give certain amount of personal information, like their name, their address, their payment information. The key here is to not ask people for more information that you as a company really need. To be clear, at its core, your e-commerce business does not need consent to execute a sale or process an online order. So a couple of things to consider at checkout is on your checkout page, be sure and have a clear link to your privacy policy and let customers know what information you're going to collect and how you're going to use them. And secondly, if you're going to market to those same customers, you need to get their consent, and you can do that by way of an app or a plugin, depending on what your store setup is, but you must get this consent. Again, leave all of those little check boxes that we were taught to pre-fill, leave them blank, and force the customer to check off on that before completing the checkout process. This will hereby give you the consent that you require. Just make sure that you have a link in each of these check boxes to your privacy policy and again, intent on what you plan on doing with their information. The fourth thing is a request, an individual's request for their records. So if a consumer or somebody on your website that's filled in some information comes to you, whether they call and verbally request it or fill out a form of any sort on your website, your regular contact us form or your email address, if they send you a message asking for this information, then you must comply in giving it to them. And it's a good idea to go ahead and kind of create a protocol in your company for handling these requests. You want to be sure and make a checklist or make a list of everybody that has requested this information, and then make sure that the employees in your company understand how to handle these requests. I would suggest that internally you have all of these requests go directly to kind of a internal online database, if you will. You can do something as easy as setting up a Google Docs form and have that stuff just automatically land on a spreadsheet so you, the owner, can keep track of all these requests, because the last thing you want to do is get hit or penalized with some fine for not complying. The fifth and final thing is an individual's right to request their data to be erased or deleted. And it's very much akin to item number 4, where they just request their information, but you need to actually delete this information. Now, you can do this very much along the same lines as I had described before with doing a database or having an Excel spreadsheet, and then just creating a column or some information in there that says whether or not you've deleted it. But go in and delete their information. All of these systems, Woocommerce, 3D Cart, Shopify, etc., they're all allowing for all of this data to be erased and deleted fairly easily nowadays in compliance with GDPR, and it's really in your best practice to go ahead and delete it. Now, there are certain circumstances in which you don't have to delete it, but I'm not even going to go into those. I say don't fight an uphill battle, right? You're still going to have to spend time and energy, and maybe call your attorney on this, so don't even fight it. If you're in this business, to have thousands of sales and thousands and thousands and thousands of customers. Don't mess around with just one. Just delete their information, and you'll sleep better for it. And now for my list of privacy policy generators that you can use free for your website. They include Termly, which is my favorite, privacypolicies.com, TermsFeed, and freeprivacypolicy.com. And a couple of the apps that you can use, one is for Shopify, and it is called I Agree to Terms, and one that you can use for WordPress or WooCommerce called GDPR Cookie Consent. Also, there's a great article from Business Bloomer that I will provide a link for down below in the description, along with, of course, all of the privacy policy generators I just mentioned and the apps. but it is a really good article if you have WooCommerce Store. It takes you through all of the WooCommerce settings for complying with GDPR. Now, again, remember, just having a privacy policy plugin or generator and some sort of plugin or app alone does not mean that you are in full compliance with GDPR. These are just tools that really easily help you get there. You still have to comply with requests for information and information erasers and things like that. So be sure and develop a strategy to help yourself out with the GDPR. I hope that you found this video insightful and you're able to use the tips that I've given you on how to easily take care of the GDPR and be confident. Again, if you like the information from the video, give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be notified of future updates. And lastly, download my 7-step framework on how I launch knockout products on Amazon. It's easy, instant access, and the download link is just below in the description. I'll see you on the next one.